rivalry between Yamal and Dembele. Does anybody else come into the conversation? Because I'm looking at that top 10, and I think the most consistent player to me is Mo Salah. We might have a completely different top 5 by next year. I mean, God willing. What do you make of the situation? Is this a rivalry that's here to stay?
Not long ago, we were looking forward to seeing a prolonged rivalry between Erling Haaland and Kylian Mbappe. But in just a matter of one calendar year, that has fizzled into obscurity. And now we have a new duo, a new pair of Lamine Yamal and then Ousmane Dembele. But if you've looked at Ousmane Dembele since he left his French homeland and until he returned about 2-3 seasons back, since he broke through at Stade Rennes and was purchased for I think about 35 million euros to Dortmund, and then another huge transfer fee that saw him move from Dortmund to Barcelona. I think until last season, what has plagued him and has denied us of seeing the best version of Ousmane Dembele has been injuries. I don't know if he's gone past those stages of he being fragile. If he's gone past that, then maybe we can see that rivalry we intend to see. But then I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that the Ballon d'Or winners, one, would have to individually excel. And if your individual performances are dwarfed by lack of team success, it would inure to your disadvantage. Also, you would have to look at the fair play bit, where the optics and the aesthetics, where you are branded a good boy and all of that. I personally think that inured to Vinicius's disadvantage last campaign when he lost out to Rodri. So I think we would have to look at what the criterion is. Do these players have what it takes? Talking about individual performances, obviously you cannot take that away from either of Kylian Mbappe, either of Lamine Yamal or Ousmane Dembele. But then I think the new look PSG side going forward might not play to Ousmane Dembele's advantage, and here is why. Since Kvicha Kvaratskhelia was signed from Napoli in the winter of last season, you realize that the goals were spread across the pitch for the PSG players. Initially, he was scoring a lot of goals. That's Dembele. But when Kvaratskhelia came in, the goals began to be spread amongst the players. He himself, Desire Doué, and then even Hakimi and Mendes began to pop in with a lot of goals. If you've seen this season, João Neves has started scoring a lot of goals as well. Vitinha, Ruiz. The goals are spread across the pitch, and it's an attribute Lucho himself has eulogized. He says that he would prefer he would prefer a set of players score goals to one player bagging all the plaudits. It was one reason he said that PSG were going to be a better team after the departure of Kylian Mbappe. So if there's anything that I feel would not contribute to the individual standout performances of Ousmane Dembele in subsequent seasons, aside his knack for being on the treatment table, then it is the fact that we may not see him getting the numbers as much as he did in the just ended campaign. And in as much as we may try to run away from these facts, with the exception of midfielders or defenders, if you are forward, numbers would always come to the fore. We can dabble in all the semantics, but numbers would always come to the fore. You understand? Aside maybe two players from the same team, that would cause votes to be split, like it was the scenario between Vinicius and Bellingham last season. You see, Vinicius fell short by 41 votes to Rodri. Rodri had 1170 and then Vinicius had 1129. That was last year. That was because the Madrid votes were themselves split between Bellingham, Carvajal, and then Vinicius. That is one thing that can affect a player. If you have two very strong players coming from one camp, opinions may be split. Like we all know, the Ballon d'Or is a voting contest. Top 100 journals from FIFA's first 100 placed teams vote. So aside maybe the fact that we are not sure whether he's overcome his niggling injuries, the fact that Lucho wants to see collective effort over individual doing well, it may not bode very well for Dembele in his defense of his Ballon d'Or title. That is where, if you've looked at Lamine Yamal this season, I think one of the criticisms Barca fans have labeled against him is the fact that he's growing increasingly selfish.
Yeah.
Why
he wants the goals.
Why is that so? He's realized that the Ballon d'Or contest now has become a numbers game. In as much as the optics are there, the eye test, my shout outs to eye test Pandit Wadut. In as much as the eye test and all of that would be there, it would always come down to numbers. So that is where I think we may not necessarily have that rivalry going forward. We may have different players coming in at different points in time, but to have, let's say, a consistent pair like we've had in the past 10, 15 years, where it was almost always Ronaldo and Messi and then someone else on the podium, I don't think we are going to have that much. And citing Dembele and then Lamine Yamal, these are the reasons why I think so. For Dembele, one, his fitness would not even allow him. Two, the fact that now it has become quite clear that Lucho fancies collective performance over individual exploits. It may not really favor him stats-wise and all of that. And individual performances is a major factor in who goes on to win the Ballon d'Or. In Lamine Yamal's case, I think he has the world at his feet. You know, and there's PR going for him as well. Because if you look at the Barcelona team from last season, Lamine Yamal is the better player. But I think Rafinha had a better season than Lamine Yamal. Yamal, without doubt, is the better footballer. But Rafinha, statistics-wise, I think on that Barcelona team, he was the best player last season. Looking at the issues that surrounded him from the beginning of the season, he was supposed to have been moved on. Barcelona were drooling and they were waxing lyrical. They were all over. They were twerking around that Ghanaian boy, Nico Williams. They were all over him.
Yeah.
It was when that deal fell through that Rafinha became an important figure for them again, because he was on the brink of exiting. And you see, he even had to play from his unfavored position. You know, Rafinha, like many typical left-footed attackers, would want to play from the right. And then they do the cutting. But he even plays from the left. In spite of all these things that were against him from the start of the season, I think his numbers were, maybe if you take, if in the Champions League like this, he had the better numbers compared to other Barcelona forwards. And the Champions League obviously is going to be the pick of the bunch if you are ranking the competitions that all the clubs play in. So I think Lamine Yamal is the better player, but then Rafinha had a better season. Will the same stats be the format this season? I am unable to tell. But I think Lamine Yamal has the world at his feet. If he is able to stay clear of injuries, then maybe for the foreseeable future, we would be seeing him on the podium for maybe the next 5-6 seasons. But then maybe he would have to cut off the SSs. I don't know if they contribute to what his performances would be in the long term. I think for a teenager, I think maybe he has a little bit of baggage that maybe he would have to cut off. I don't know if that would affect his performances eventually, but I think if he's able to fully concentrate on the pitch and we get the best injury-free version of Lamine Yamal, we should see him on the podium for the next 5-6 seasons.
Right. So definitely we'll see him on the podium. But big news coming in.